Netflix's Ozark has 18 Emmy nominations for its third season. I'm Riley Chow of Gold Derby here with Chris Mundy, the head writer and executive producer. Now, Jason Bateman gets a lot of credit as your fellow executive producer and as your lead director, but Ozark is actually not one of those exceptions to the rule like David Fincher on Mindhunter or M. Night Shyamalan on Servant. You actually are the showrunner. So can you set the record straight here? What is your role in overseeing things?
Well, yeah, like you said, I'm the showrunner. So it's like, we in the writer's room start up probably four or 5 months before we start filming and start outlining it all, start cranking out the scripts. And then from there, in my job, you're choosing who the directors are. Jason and I talk about all that stuff together. We're the last two people in the editing room every time. I'm talking to the actors since I know what's coming, and we're talking about the character, and really just sort of, I'm the person that's sort of there on the first day and the last day. So I'm kind of I kind of never have it. I never stop working on the show as it turns out.
What is a bit unorthodox, though, is that you actually did not create the show. That was Bill Dubuque with help from Mark Williams, but you were actually involved extremely early. So can you tell me about taking on, this project that was created by somebody else?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. You never know how that's going to work. Especially somebody like Bill's a screenwriter, but he'd never done television. So depending on how involved or not involved he wants to be, and Bill also lives in St. Louis. So he wasn't going to be around day to day. So the tricky thing was trying to figure out what that balance was, how much he wanted to kind of hand it over and say, go with God or not. And which ended up being the case. I mean, he's an incredibly great guy and great writer, but the day to day, we were able to sort of take it in a direction where we wanted to go as a group of writers, and he was just supportive of that and kind of happy to step away. But it's a little tricky, and you've got to find, if you didn't write the pilot, you've got to find the characters, the thematics, all the things within it that are going to interest you and that are going to make you want to keep writing, because with success you're going to be doing this show for 4 or 5 years, so you better want to live in this place for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask, is it 4 or 5 years? Because you've been renewed for this final season, which is an expanded 4th season, but it's going to be airing over kind of 2 years. Are you treating this more as 1 season or 2?
It's a really good question. We're treating it as in the writer's room as more as like 2, just in terms of, it is 1 season, and episode 401 is even going to be a flash forward, most likely, into something that comes deeper. We're not positive about that, but so in the way that it's one whole, but because people are going to experience it in 2 halves, we want to feel like episode 407 ends in a certain way and episode 408 begins in a certain way that respect the fact that people are going to watch it months apart. And at the same time, when you go back at the end of it all and you watch it as 1 full season, once the second half of it is dropped, it feels coherent. You know what I mean? But we try to do that from year to year anyway. So, but we won't have a gigantic time jump because of that. Do you know what I mean? Well, because technically it is 1 season. So we want to keep it whole.
I feel like I understand what Netflix is getting out of this, contractual loophole of calling it 4A and 4B as opposed to 4 and 5. I'm wondering, are you finding any creative advantages?
More time to tell the story. I mean, honestly. So, we always wanted a little bit more time, and the only caveat I always had is I wanted to know when we were going to end. I didn't want to be in a position of writing something that might be the finale or not, depending on whether or not we kept going. So, and Netflix was really good about that. They said, we will tell you, for sure. So knowing it's the end and we can write to an end is really helpful. But getting a little more time to tell it is great, honestly. It's hard because we've been doing the writer's room, by Zoom. So it's hard enough to do an extra 4 when we're all together. It's even trickier to hold all that info in your head for 14. But we're managing it. We're breaking episode 11 as we speak, so we're getting there.
How much were you setting up the end game in, say, season 3?
We were quite a bit. We've been setting up the end game. There's hints at the end game as early as early season 2. So.
Okay. Now, at the Emmys this year, you're nominated not only as a producer, but also as a writer for scripting the finale. The first 2 seasons of Ozark, you only submitted a finale by you. This year, you submitted 3 episodes for writing. If I had a part in that, I would have definitely advised against it, since you couldn't even get 1 nomination. But this year, you actually did get all 3 of them nominated. Can you tell me about changing up that strategy and how you knew that it would work?
We had no idea it would work whatsoever, and people will probably tell you not to split your votes.
Yeah.
So, especially with 9 and 10, they were so much of a piece that I don't know how you would pick one and not the other. Do you know what I mean? And then with episode 4, it just stood alone on its own so much that it was its own kind of separate thing. So so it felt kind of organic. I mean, honestly, but it really started being born out of the fact that we were going to put 2 in there no matter what, because 9 and 10 feel like one movie to us, and we thought of them that way, and so it just felt organic. And then, I mean, I never would have. I was trying to write what is the beginning of the second half of season 4. I was on deadline for that and writing it the day the Emmy votes came out, and I got a text from John Scheiben, who wrote 304, saying like, "You mean Mickey all just got nominated?" And I didn't believe him. I had to stop writing and go online and try to look it up because it was so crazy.
Yeah, Ozark really exploded this year. Last year you got 9 nominations. This year you got 18. You're tied with Succession. They got more acting nominations. You got more nominations in the other fields. How much are you feeling, excitement being part of the Gold Derby?
It's exciting. It's nerve-wracking. Last year, everyone was going on the assumption that Game of Thrones was going to win, so you could just kind of enjoy it because it was like, oh, good, it's a foregone conclusion. This one, it'll probably be a tiny bit more nerve-wracking, but mostly it's just like, it's great. I'm so glad people like the show, and we came out at a time during when people were kind of locked down in their houses, but so. The fact that people were going to watch, we had sort of a captive audience, but the fact that they really seem to respond to it has nothing to do with that. And so it's been great. And like you said, I'm really glad. I mean, we had 2 directing nominations, and both of our editors got nominated, and both of our DPs got nominated. So that kind of stuff, Sandra and Danny for the score, like all the fact that it stretches across the whole show. And we're a group that all really like working together and feel really proud of the fact that every component piece has to be good for us to be any good. So that felt really great. It felt like it really did feel like it was all of us,
This season you had the character of Ben Davis coming in. I noticed a lot of similarities between his arc and the arc of Ruth's dad in the second season, where he's this family member coming in, kind of just ruining things, and then he's got to go. Even kind of killed by the same woman. Can you tell me about differentiating those 2 arcs?
Yeah, well, I mean, they touch such different parts. I mean, Cade coming in was really to illuminate Ruth and to put her in a position of sort of being between her real father and a surrogate father in Marty. So really, I mean, Trevor Long was great, and the character was great, and that Cade was built to really shine a light on Ruth in a lot of ways, and that whole family, and Ben's character is doing a lot of different things. We actually talked a lot about bringing him in season 2 originally, and he and Cade would have coexisted, and then we ultimately felt like we had so much story that it was just going to get clogged a little bit, and so we waited to introduce him in season 3. But you know, for this, Ben, we wanted to touch on the heartbreak for Wendy of wishing reality could be different. She wanted him there, but she knows it's unsafe. And the idea of being able to use him as a love interest with Ruth could sort of speak to her evolution and about being like whether or not she feels worthy of being loved. I think Ruth is someone who has a hard time believing that about herself and trusting that and showing, because I think that the great thing about that character is she's so tough, but especially the way Julia plays her, there's a real vulnerability underneath it. And I think that's, and she just kills it with that, with the way Julia plays it. So we wanted to be able to write directly to that. So they feel really different to me in that way. But in the end, yeah, it is family. And so much of what we're doing on the show all is just about family. And so in that way, it's, I definitely see the similarity.
Now, the show is so often compared to Breaking Bad. Last, I think you commented on it. You actually hadn't finished Breaking Bad. I'm wondering if that's still the case.
I've seen a lot of Breaking Bad. I haven't seen all of Breaking Bad. I'm not as well versed in it as some people. I mean, it's great. But for whatever reason, I hadn't watched it in real time. So I've kind of like gone back and like spot checked it in places. So yeah, I'm not as well versed as some people are on it.
I feel like the big difference I noticed between Breaking Bad and Ozark is that in Breaking Bad, he had a lot of trouble convincing his family to go along with his life of crime. They found out very late. They took a long time adjusting to it. Whereas I feel like in Ozark, I'm wondering, like, did you just kind of want to go in a different direction and kind of not deal with that?
We've tended on this show to like drive straight at things. We don't play a lot of mystery. We play a lot of tension and fallout from things that do happen. So the goal was never to have it be about things that some people don't know, or we've sort of skipped that step every single time. In every story we tell, small and big, we don't hide the ball a whole lot. We kind of go right at it. And for us, it's sort of, I know there's crime at the heart of it, but we really think of it as a story of this marriage and of this family. And so anything that illuminates, we're always trying to illuminate the marriage. And so it just, I think that's, I understand in the setup why the two shows kind of people talked about them, but in the same way that I don't think Breaking Bad and Weeds had anything in common. At the beginning, when Breaking Bad came out, they were like, oh, it's like Weeds, but like those two shows, there's like one piece of DNA and then they go somewhere else,
I'm looking at all these plot points that I could bring up. I feel like I definitely need to ask about Darlene and Wyatt and pairing those two characters.
That was my favorite thing going into the season. That was kind of all of our favorite thing that we were doing. When I called Charlie to tell him that what the storyline was going to be, and who plays Wyatt, and he laughed for a solid like minute and a half straight on the thing. He was like so excited to do it. It was for us, we like stories that they're surprising, but then they weirdly make some kind of sense. And for us, each of these people was a little bit broken, and so she needed to take care of something or someone, and he had sort of lost his family in Ruth. And so we wanted it to feel really organic, and we tried to write it. We always said, like, we want to write it and we want to film it as if these people are exactly the same age. We're not winking at any of it. It's an actual emotional relationship. And so we just wanted to tell a story about like human need and emotion. And then obviously with the difference in age, it was going to be something that people kind of looked sideways at for a split second. But once we had the idea in the room, it was really like, people kept saying, are we really doing it? I'm like, yeah, we're really doing it. And it just went, we just rolled.
Now, what about introducing Navarro in the third season? I feel like I read a lot during the first two seasons where people were kind of wondering, like, is he even like a singular person? Is he actually just like a name to refer to a larger organization? Tell me about actually, writing that character.
Yeah, I think I heard that people theorized to me that Helen was actually the head of the cartel, and she didn't really have a boss. We thought if we're 3 seasons in, we might as well, like, we're embedded in as a family unit in the Birds in the cartel, then we might as well let the audience see the head of the cartel too. And really, it was again, it was kind of to illuminate Wendy in a bit, and the proximity to this kind of power and what it did to her, because it's both scary and exciting. And I think a lot of this and a lot of the initial getting into this world in the first place for the Birds was scary but a little bit exciting. And so we wanted it to physically manifest, and we wanted it to be, be careful what you wish for, because if you get too close, then it's going to get really frightening.
So you've been showrunner for these 3 seasons now. Is there anything when you look back at the first or even the second season, you think like, oh, like, why did we do that?
Not a whole lot. I mean, it's gone more or less the way we've wanted it to do. I mean, it's funny to me to think about the evolution of some of the stuff. I've said it before, but even just looking at Ruth, like Ruth, the first time you see Ruth's character, she's just a maid working at this crappy little motel that the Birds first show up in. And then we open season 3 and she's running a casino. And so I look at more of the evolution and think like, oh God, did we go too far too fast on some things? But it hasn't felt that way. It's felt, even though we tell a lot of story, it's felt organic. So no, I don't have any big regrets in terms of stuff. There was a whole thing in season 2 about Cade running a chop shop of boats that we started and then just didn't have the room for, and then shot a couple things. So it's kind of dangling out there a little bit. There's like 1 or 2 pieces of it, but and we couldn't serve it the way we wanted to. But besides that, no, I think, knock on wood, we've more or less done what we wanted to.
All right, Chris. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to chat. We have many other Ozark interviews on our YouTube channel, and you can go to goldderby.com to make your own Emmy predictions.
Awesome. Thanks.